Today is September 16th, 2022. I am Gabriele Fellows with the Museums of Lake County, and this is an oral history interview with Mike Salter. Mike, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
To get started, what can you tell us about your name? Were you named after anyone?
No, I would just name my mother and father, just picked the name. My middle name is after my mother's brother who passed away early.
Oh, what's your middle name?
Reed.
Oh, okay. What is your date of birth and how old are you?
I'm born in April 26th, 1934. I'm 88 years old.
Where were you born?
In Waukesha, Wisconsin.
What were your parents' names?
My dad's name was Claude Frank Salter, and my mother's name was Alice Salter.
Do you have any siblings?
Yes, I had a brother and two sisters.
Where did your ancestors come from?
From Ireland.
Oh, do you know where in Ireland?
The southern part of Ireland. I don't remember the name.
Where were you raised?
In Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, and Menominee Falls, Wisconsin.
Who would you say raised you and why?
My mother and dad, because they always took care of us. I was the oldest of the family.
Oh, okay. What was it like being the oldest?
I don't know, I just was there.
What did your father do for a living?
My father worked for the Internal Revenue Service, and he was in charge of the audit division until he retired, and then he went into private practice as a CPA.
What did your mother do for a living?
Raised us kids.
What do you know about how your parents met?
I think they went to grade school together, and then they got back together after years in California.
Oh, okay. When did they get married?
I think in 1932.
And how long were they married for?
65 years.
Wow. What are some of your earliest childhood memories?
Oh, I used to ride a bicycle to school and always rode my bicycle around. My aunt and uncle and my grandmother had a farm, and we visited there and I helped there. And my aunt used to have chickens, so I had an egg route when I was about 9 years old and sold eggs. That was my first business.
Do you remember how much you sold them for?
No, I'd go to the A&P grocery store and find out the price on Friday afternoon, and then we'd pick up the eggs and I would candle them, and then we would deliver them to clients, and I would always sell for about the same price that A&P was selling for.
Oh, you matched their price?
Yes.
Cool. How long did you do that for?
Oh, probably 2 years.
Oh, okay. Did you have a best friend as a kid?
Yes, I had a friend that lived down the street from us, and I can't think, his name was Chuck, and he had the paper route. He delivered the Milwaukee Journal papers.
Oh, okay. Did you have a group of friends you hung out with?
In high school, I did. There was a group of us that kind of hang around together. And I had a friend by the name of John Sennett in high school that was close to me.
Where did you go to high school?
Menominee Falls, Wisconsin.
And what was it like there?
Well, it was good. It was a small town high school. There were 100 students in my class. And it was a good school.
Did you have any after-school activities?
I belonged to the FFA and the 4-H, and I had some projects with the FFA.
Oh, okay. What kinds of projects?
Well, I organized and started a mailbox deal. In Wisconsin, we had a lot of snow, and the snowplows sometimes would hit the mailboxes and knock them off. And we would go around as members of the FFA, our group, and reinstall and sell people a new mailbox.
Neat. Did you have a favorite subject in school?
I think just agriculture.
Oh, did you have any pets?
No, not as such. We moved from Wauwatosa to a farm. We had a big farm at Colgate, Wisconsin, and I had a lot of animals, a lot of cows. Milked about 80 cows, and we farmed about 400 acres, which was a big farm in those days. Today it wouldn't be much, or very big, but it was a very good farm, and we had a very nice farm.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a favorite teacher in school?
Well, I think my 6th grade teacher was probably my favorite. Her name was Miss Marks.
What did you like about her?
Yeah, she was always understanding and was just a nice person. She later on left teaching and got married, and she and her husband raised mink. They had a mink farm.
Oh, okay. Neat. Did you have any goals or dreams for when you grew up?
No, I just always wanted to farm. And I did till after high school.
Oh, okay.
I joined the Naval Reserve when I was 17 and was slated to go to active duty, and we sold the farms and the cattle and everything, and I went to Chicago to go into active duty, and that was during the Korean War. And when I got to Chicago at 9 o'clock, they said, we canceled all the orders at 7 o'clock this morning, so just go back home.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I don't have a home to go back to.
Oh.
We were all done. And they didn't have much care about that. So anyway, then I went back home, and I went to the University of Nebraska, moved to Lincoln.
What did you study there?
Agriculture, dairy husbandry.
Is that what your major was in?
Yes, and I milked cows there from 3 to 7 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And I raised the calves there.
What did you like about doing that?
Well, it was just kind of natural for me, and I just did that. And I was only there a couple years because I didn't like the hot summers in Nebraska. So then I moved to California. I came out to my uncle that lived in Buckingham Park, and he I lived there for a little bit and went to work for Carl Brado, and I got a real estate license. And then I worked for Lang Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Then I left and I went back down to the San Francisco Bay Area, and I went to work for Armour and Company selling meat and their products to hotels and restaurants.
What was that like?
And that was pretty good. I probably served 90% of the meat that went out of San Francisco on airplanes in those days. And that was kind of the best part of my job there. Mm-hmm. And then they had a cut back and they laid me off.
Oh.
So then I went to Seattle to sell weather windshield products. And the year I went was the driest year they ever had in Seattle. So I went broke and I came back to Lake County.
Okay, what year was that?
1958.
And how old were you?
I don't know, 23, 24, something like that. I'd have to do the math.
Where did you end up living when you moved back here?
I came back to my uncle's house, and I stayed there just a short time and then bought a travel trailer and parked it in Soda Bay.
Oh, okay.
And then I went back to work in the construction business.
Oh.
I went to work for Lang Brothers, and I worked for them, and then I worked for Bond Construction on building Sand Hill Road, which is Highway 29 from Kelseyville to 175.
Mm-hmm. What was that like?
Well, that was good. I did good with that. And I lived up in Redding for a little while after I came back from Seattle. For a summer, I lived up there and did construction work. Then I came back and worked here. Mm-hmm. And then I went in the real estate business for Baird Anton was the broker, and I worked for them at Lake County Realty with John Lee and Harold. I can't think of his name. Harold Elliott. And I didn't do well in that. And a cousin of my aunt's came up and talked about building translators, and I didn't know what translators were at the time.
What is a translator?
Well, a translator was a TV translator, and what it does is it receives a TV signal from a station and then retransmits it locally. And there was no television in Lake County. The best you could do would be a 150-foot antenna with a rotor on top, and you could get some snow. Mm-hmm. That was all there was. So I talked with him about it and thought that'd be a good idea. So we crawled up Mount Canocti and we had talked to Marie Fowler, who owned the mountain, and she agreed to lease us an acre on Buckingham, or North Peak, which is Buckingham Peak. So we crawled up there on our hands and knees one Sunday through the brush to see what it looked like, and it looked pretty good. And we could see all around the lake, and it would be a good site. So I pursued that. And in 1961, I put together Lake County Television Club and got subscriptions. I sold subscriptions around the lake to anybody who could see the mountaintop, and would buy a subscription to have television, and we would have 3 channels of television.
What 3 channels were they?
And we were going to have channel 4, 5, and 9 to start with. And we sold the subscriptions for $71.50 a subscription, of which $55 went to the construction, and they would get an UHF antenna in order to receive the signal, because we would be broadcasting on UHF.
Oh, okay. What's the difference between UHF and VHF?
One was very high frequency and the other is ultra high frequency, and I don't know that much about them. But I needed 1,000 subscribers in order to put it together. So I had a number of friends of mine as a board of directors, and we raised the money, and we were all ready to start the construction, except we didn't have the power line money available because PG&E wanted me to hire a crew for 5 days to investigate if they could build a power line, and then it would be about $2.35 a foot minimum, and going up the mountain it probably would be much more. And we needed about 7,700 foot of power. Well, we didn't have that kind of money at all, so we were stymied for a while. And I met Howard Day at that time, who was an electrical contractor in Lower Lake, and had HD Electric, or Howard Day Electric in Lower Lake. And he said, I understand you want to build a power line. And I said, yes. So he said, well, let me look at it. And he looked it all over. And the best price we could get that we had to build it would be about $16,000, of which we did not have. And he came up with the fact that he would build it for 75 cents a foot. So I said, whoa, that's great, we can go. So then we hired a contractor to build a tower. We built a 235-foot tower, and we built a building. Ernie Steen and I and Bob Orell built the building. We had the block man build the blocks from Kelseyville. God, I can't think of his name either. But anyway, he built the blocks and built an 8 by 20 foot building on the mountain. And we poured the roof, a concrete roof. We mixed the concrete by hand and lifted it to the roof and poured the roof one day. And then we got the translators ordered. We were ordered 3 translators from New Rochelle, New York. And we are having a meeting and ready to have them come and so on. And they said, well, they won't get here for another 2 or 3 months. And I said to the fellow who we had bought them from, why not? I said, ship them by air. And he said, oh, they're big, you can't ship them by air. And I said, I think you can. Flying Tigers would do it. So about 8 o'clock one night, I called the Flying Tigers and asked them if they could fly them, and they said yes. The next morning they were on the plane, and the next afternoon they were in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
So there we moved on. And we were always very aggressive in the translator business, and we were among some of the best in the country. And we belonged to the National Translator Association, and we were always ahead of the curve.
Oh.
And as time went on, we started local origination, and that we were probably the first in the country to do local origination.
What's local origination?
That's where we would broadcast some from our own studio, and we would intercept and plug into the station at different times, and we would put in commercials.
Oh, okay.
And we'd overlay the commercials from there, from the station. And we did that, and then we had our own 5-minute newscast for a while, and we expanded from 3 channels up to 12.
Oh, wow.
And we started out at $10 a year, voluntary subscription, and we sent out little flags to the people that they could put on their house that designated they were an LCTV member. And that was quite an accomplishment. And I felt real good on that. And I was the president of it and ran it for 40 years.
Wow.
And then satellites came in, and that kind of eliminated us. And they built a tower next to our tower and blocked our signal for some of it. And that became the big problem that put us out of business.
Who did that?
US Cell and AT&T.
Oh, okay. So the cell phone companies.
Yes.
So how did they put you guys out of business?
Well, we had our big subscriptions were in Big Valley, and they built a tower that blocked our signal to go to Big Valley, and therefore those people couldn't get the signal as such. And that kind of eliminated us, along with the satellites coming in and everything. It was a dying business by that time.
Oh, what year was that?
In 2004.
Oh, okay. So was the business sold?
No, it just evaporated.
Oh, okay. Is there anything left of the station?
Well, the cell phone companies and the county of Lake took it all over, and it's all there, except our tower. We had the 235-foot tower, and that fell down in January of '63, and under about 77 ton of ice. And we rebuilt it to 125 foot and changed channels from the Bay Area to Sacramento and continued with it. And then when we went out, we sued the cell phone company, and basically they beat us in court, and that eliminated us.
Oh, okay. Did you have to pay them anything?
No, we didn't pay them. They just eliminated us.
Okay.
But then the county took over the buildings and so on, and they're using them now. They've rebuilt the tower. They put a new tower up, and I haven't been up there since '04.
Oh, okay. Do you know what the county uses the tower for?
Their communications all around.
Right. Do you remember anything about the newscasts? Do you remember who the newscasters were?
The what?
The anchors that on TV. Do you remember any of their names?
Oh, you know him. Dave Jolliffe ran it for me, basically. I didn't run the station, he ran it.
Oh.
And I was the president of the club. And, I can't think of her name that was there. Maybe you know her name.
And LCTV was at a different location at first, correct?
Yes, we were above Colonial Title because Howard Day owned that building and he just let us use some rooms up there.
Okay.
And then we moved from there to the location on off of Main Street. And that's when we really had the advertising agency was Lake County Advertising.
Do you remember any of the clients? Any businesses that had ads?
Oh, Strohmeyer's was one of the big ones. He always had ads. We had ads from all kinds of businesses around Lake County. We sold about $30,000 a month worth of advertising in those days when we were in the heyday.
And how many staff members were there?
Probably 5, 6 staff members.
So it was a little station.
Yes, it was small. We had 2 or 3 cars, and we had on-site. We would do remote broadcasts and so on. It was a real good little station.
Do you miss it at all?
No, I'm past that now.
Oh. So talk about the title company you owned. How did you get into that?
Well, Howard Day, who I mentioned, I met when he came to talk about the power line. And he owned a title company, and he asked me if I wanted a job, and I said yes, and he said, good. So I went down to see about it, and the manager then hired me, and I went to work in 1963 for Colonial Title. And in 30 days, he said, you'll open a new office in Clear Lake. Well, I didn't know anything, but 30 days later, I was in Clear Lake running the branch office. I worked at that, learned the rest of it all the way up. 1971, I took over Lakeport and Clear Lake, and then I proceeded to buy another company in Colusa, and a couple of years later we opened another office in Willows, so I had 4 offices.
Oh, wow.
And I worked for that. I ran that from 71 to 91.
How was it to manage 4 different locations?
Well, I had people in all of them, and there again, I was one of the first that had computers in the title industry, and we we did well with that. And I traveled those 4 offices twice a week.
Oh, okay.
And it was a good little company. And then Howard died, and his siblings wanted to get rid of it. They wanted the money, and so they sold the company.
Oh.
And then that put me out. So in 91, I was out.
What did you do after that?
I did some consulting work for a couple of years, and then I just retired. And since then, I've just done community work.
So talk about Catfish Unlimited. What is it? And talk about how you help plant fish into the lake.
Well, back in 1959, back in about 63, I was on the board of directors of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. Frank Grastite was a commercial fisherman on Clear Lake, and he fished for carp and blackfish. And he came to me and said, you know, we could raise some fish in the lake. And the fishing in the lake in Clear Lake had been real good in the late 50s and the early 60s, and then it dropped off. And so he came to me and said, we could plant some channel catfish in here. That would really do well. So I said, okay, I don't know anything about that. I can do the organization, but I don't know anything else. He said, well, I can get the fish. So he talked to Fish and Game, and they agreed that they were going to furnish us with fish. So I had a meeting at the Wayzata Resort in those days, of which we would ask resort owners to come, and if they would build a live car, which was a 4x4 by 8 foot frame covered with mesh wire, and it would sit in the lake, and we would put the fish, which were 87 fish to the ounce, in those live cars and feed them. And then as they grew, then we'd turn them loose in the lake. Well, we had the meeting, and we had, 20 resorts around the lake agreed they would build a live car. And we had one bait shop owner from Nice said, Fish and Game will never furnish you the fish. It's all a hoax. They won't do it. Well, we kind of overrode him, and come to find out he was right.
Oh.
They were going to send the fish from Nyland Fish Hatchery in Nyland, California. And Frank Grastad happened to go down there in January, and we were going to get these fish now in about the 1st of April. Well, when he went down there to look at it, there was all kinds of bulldozers and earth movers building a hatchery, and the fellow said, we aren't going to have a hatchery for 2 years. So we didn't have any, and we'd already had all these people build their live cars. So Frank Grastite made arrangements and bought fish from Weha Farms in Richvale, from the Lundberg brothers, who are in the rice business. In order to get the money, we went to the Board of Supervisors and asked for some money from the TOT tax, and they gave us $1,500, which is what it took to start. And Frank Grastad hauled the fish free, furnished that, and then we had formed Catfish Unlimited, and we had donations come from resorts and from fishermen. We sold decals, Catfish Unlimited decals, and all the money we got from that, we bought fish food for, and we would feed the fish. And our fish were, as I say, started at 57 to the ounce, and by September, we've planted them in April, and by September, they weighed 12 ounces apiece. and we dumped them in the lake. And Fish and Game didn't like that at the time because they put out an article. Our fish cost about 13 to 18 cents a piece to raise, and they were raising fish which were running about 75 cents a piece. So they didn't like our show. So we never got any more cooperation from Fish and Game.
Oh, okay.
But we did that for a couple of years, and then we had a flood, and the channel catfish went over the dam.
Uh-oh.
So we didn't have many left, and so Frank Grastide had leased the lakes down at Gwinnett Ranch, and he was raising bass. And he said, if you want, we can switch, and we'll plant largemouth bass in the lake direct. So I said, okay, that would be fine. And he was selling those fish for about 25 cents a piece. And he said, I'll sell them to Catfish Unlimited for 10 cents, which he did. And we went around the lake, and at that point, we had a number of resorts that we dumped the fish at, and if the resort would donate an extra $100, we would double the amount of fish we would dump on their ramp. And we did good. We planted between 10,000 and 125,000 a year, every year, then for, I don't know, it was a number of years that we did that, maybe 5, 7 years. And then the county decided that they would take it over and they would do the fish planting, which they did. Mm-hmm. But they only would plant 2,000 a year.
Are they doing that right now?
I don't think they've planted in years.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I have no idea where it is now.
Do you do any fishing yourself?
I did a lot of fishing. I didn't fish much bass. I fished trout in lakes all over the West.
Oh, okay.
And I used to travel about 200 days a year.
Did you eat them?
Yes.
Did you have a favorite way to cook them?
You fry fish and you bake turkeys.
So I heard you were the Grand Marshal for the Lower Lake Parade and the 4th of July Parade. How did you get chosen for that?
Well, I was on the board of directors from the Lower Lake Community Action Group, and we picked someone in the group or someone in town who had been here or whatever. And so that's how I got picked there. I got that by default. And I'd been active helping the Lions Club on a number of things, and they selected me for the Redbud Parade.
Oh, okay. Did you enjoy being in the parade?
Yeah, that was fine.
Yeah.
My wife and I both were in that.
So, what's your wife's name?
June.
And how long have you been married?
61 years.
Wow. Where did you meet her?
At Edgewater Resort in Soda Bay.
Okay. Do you remember anything about that day?
Yeah, she and her sister and brother-in-law came into the bar at the resort. There was a nice bar and restaurant there in those days. And I used to attend bar there to just help out a little once in a while. And it was a 4th of July weekend, and they came in and sat down at a table, and her sister was about 6 months pregnant or 8 months pregnant. And they sat down, and I came over and asked them if they wanted a drink, and they said yes. They ordered a drink. So I went and got the drinks, and when I came back, I brought 4 drinks. So I sat down and visited with them. And that was the beginning.
Oh, okay. Do you have any children?
Yes, we have 2 children.
What are their names?
Susan and Nancy.
And do they live in Lake County?
No, Susan lives in Aviano, Italy, and
Oh, wow.
Nancy lives in Chico.
Oh, okay.
They're both school teachers. They
Oh.
teach TK in kindergarten. Susan has a contract with the Department of Defense, and she's been a teacher with them for over 30 years. And Nancy teaches at TK in Hamilton City, and she's been a teacher. But she had her own daycare preschool for a while, and then she went to work for the Hamilton City school district, and she teaches TK there for I don't know, a number of years.
Do you ever get to see them?
I see Nancy periodically. She comes home, and then I see my other daughter, Susan. She was home this last summer for 2 weeks, and they come every year or every other year, but they hadn't been able to come from the COVID thing.
Mm. Do you remember any stories from when they were children?
Yeah. They were both in 4-H, and they showed lambs at the fair and sold lambs. And they both went to Lower Lake High School and graduated. And Susan then went to Chico and graduated she went to Yuba College first, and then transferred to Chico and graduated. And Nancy went to Yuba College, and then went to Chico and went to Simpson College and graduated.
Neat. So how many years were you on the fair board, and what were your duties?
I was on the fair board for about 12 years, and I was a fair board member. And the latter part of the 12 years, I was the open livestock superintendent.
What did you do?
And I was that for about 12 years.
And what did you do as that?
I would promote the animal show for the open livestock, which was the senior section. Commercial people, excuse me, would come and show beef and lambs, or what we would show, and hogs.
Oh, okay.
And I would promote that to see that we'd have a good show, and it would be competitive for the people of Lake County and Northern California.
Did you go to the fair this year?
No, I wasn't able to go this year. I'm not able to go to those things now because I have to take care of my wife.
Okay. Talk about me being a Mason for 56 years. Why did you decide to join?
Well, my whole family had been Masons, basically. And so I joined the Masons in Lakeport. And then when I moved to Clear Lake, I had some of the work done, the degrees, here in the Lower Lake Schoolhouse, which the Clear Lake Masonic Lodge used to own. And we had the degrees right here in this room.
Oh, okay.
And then later on, we traded the property where the Masonic Lodge is now for the schoolhouse. plus some money. And we built the lodge building where it is now on Highway 53. And I became a master mason and have been for, like you say, 56 years now, I think it's been about.
What's a master mason?
Well, the Masonic Lodge is made up of the Blue Lodge, which is 3 degrees. And when you have obtained the 3rd degree, then you become a master mason. And after that, you can go on in masonry to the Scottish Rite or the York Rite. And I went to the Scottish Rite, and that's headquartered here, is in Santa Rosa. I belong to the Scottish Rite. And I've belonged to that for 50-some years now.
Oh.
Also, then you can go into the shrine if you want, which is kind of the fun house of masonry. And I did that over 50 years ago now. And the Shriners have the hospitals around the country, and one in Mexico and one in Canada, I believe. And the Shriners Hospital is for crippled children and burn victims. And we never charge anybody to take care of you in that Shriners Hospital, those children. They can be there from 6 months to 18 years old. And presently, I collect pop and beer tabs in Lake County, which I take to the Shriners Hospital, which is used, they sell them, and the money is used to supply supplies for their permanent, for their school, for their permanent patients. Some patients are long-term, and they're there, they live there and are in that school, and that money goes to do that.
What other hobbies do you have right now?
Oh, I do a little cooking for groups, or I have in the past. I haven't lately with the COVID and everything, but otherwise I do some cooking. And otherwise, just community service with churches. I belong to the St. John's Episcopal Church and have since 1955. And my wife was Lutheran, and so we also belong to Galilee Lutheran Church. And then Lower Lake Community Church burned down in the big fire.
Oh, yeah.
And they have rebuilt it, and I kind of help with their landscaping a little to maintain some of that.
So you mentioned that you're part of the Lower Lake Community Action Group. How long have you been a part of that?
Probably since 2000.
Do you have meetings?
We used to have a dinner meeting every month, and I cooked the dinner meeting. Russell Restici was very instrumental in Lower Lake's operation. He donated all the money and built the playground at the park in Lower Lake, and he did furnish the kitchen, and he used to do the meals, and I helped him. And we used to have a yearly Memorial Day parade and barbecue. We still have the parade, and now we have a vendor show instead of the barbecue. But I used to do the barbecue, and that we would serve about 500 or 600 pounds of meat at that barbecue. and I became involved with Russell, and then he passed away in '04, and I continued until the COVID. And since then, we haven't had any monthly meetings. We have done an Oktoberfest as a drive-through, and that worked out well. And I don't know if we're going to do that this year or not. We'll know next week, maybe.
Okay. Do they put on any other events?
We have had a Christmas parade, the homecoming parade for the high school we take care of. We've been active in a scholarship fund. We donate about $10,000 a year to scholarships for seniors in the Canocta School District. And so that's where our money goes that we raise on projects.
Oh, okay. Have you ever traveled outside the U.S.? And if so, where'd you go?
Yes. When my daughter Susan was teaching in Japan, we went to Japan to visit them, and that was kind of neat. And then they transferred to Italy, and we've traveled there twice. We've traveled to Ireland twice, and we've traveled on a cruise from England all the way up the coast of Norway to the top of Norway.
What was your favorite thing about Ireland?
The beer.
The pubs, right?
Yes, they were great, and the people were really great. One time we took a tour, and other times we went on our own. I guess we were there 3 times.
What places did you visit in Ireland?
Well, when we were on the bus tour, we went all the way around Ireland. We didn't go to Northern Ireland, but we went to everything else.
Oh, okay. Neat. What do you think are some of the biggest problems that face our nation, and how do you think they could be solved?
Well, I think we have to get back to more conservative type things, quit spending all the money, and have more family-oriented societies, and that would clear it up.
Can you elaborate a little?
Well, I don't think that we're going in the right direction right now. I think we need to seal the borders and have people be able to immigrate to the United States legally. And when we do that, then we have some control of who's coming and what's going on, and that would solve some of our crime problems, which has become a big issue, I think.
Mm-hmm. What would you describe as the best day of your life?
The day I got married.
Where did you get married?
In Los Angeles at the Episcopal Cathedral.
Was there a lot of people there?
Yeah, we had quite a big wedding. Maybe, well, I don't know what you'd call big. We had probably close to 100 people.
Was it catered?
No.
No?
My wife's sister did the reception at their house.
Oh.
In Anaheim.
Oh, okay. And where did you go on your honeymoon?
Up the Sierras, through the east side of the Sierras.
Oh, okay. What's the best advice you could give future generations?
Stay focused, work hard, be a good citizen.
And what is your motto?
Read, think, don't fight the problem.
What haven't I asked you that you think is important for people to know about you?
I'm just a cranky old man.
Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't know of anything that we haven't covered, pretty much. I've always been involved in civic work, and I think people should volunteer to give back, and I've tried to do that throughout my life.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today and for sharing your stories.
You're welcome. It's been a privilege to be here.